What up, IDS Mob? Welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host, as always, Harry Wilmington. This is the show where we teach you how to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. So I was going to record this as a pre-recorded video because I'm about to, in like an hour, go to a play for a friend of mine. But I said, you know what? I'll go ahead and do it as a live and I'll chop it up later. So today, we're going to be talking about the 10 types of women to avoid when you're out there dating. And I'm doing this because I want you all to have the best shot possible at finding a woman that's going to be sane and highly respectable and feminine and treat you the way you need to be treated. And I find that sometimes as men, when we don't have a lot of options coming to us, we just take whatever option says yes. And in the process, we forget that there are plenty of women out there that actually don't make good dating candidates. And so I want to go over what some of those women are today. So I have 10 types of women that you should avoid. I want to preface this by saying some of this is based on personal experience, some of this is based on statistics, and some of it's based on observation in the real world. But the point is, regardless, a lot of times when I make these videos, I'll have guys comment and say that they relate to the things that I'm talking about and that they've experienced the same things with these types of women. So understand that other men are experiencing negative consequences from dating these type of women. And I want to make sure you're not one of those guys, or if you have been one of these guys, that you're no longer doing that. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. First off, I have a top 10. So I'm going to go from 10 to 1, but I want to start off with an honorable mention. And this is one that I was going to potentially add to the list, but it just barely didn't make it. And that is boss chicks. Now, I say this because I think there are plenty of boss chicks out there that are well-meaning and have a good head on their shoulders and could potentially make for good mates. The problem I find with a lot of boss chicks, though, is in order to be a boss chick, and that's a chick that's like, you know, really trying to make it in this world and is trying to go through the upper ranks of her job and her career, that requires oftentimes a lot of masculine energy, because the majority of people that she's fighting against to get to those positions are men. And so that means that she has to spend a lot of her masculine energy trying to outshow these other men to get to where she's at, which can then tumble into her relationship and home life when you're around her trying to be the man, and she's coming to you tired and exhausted from having to use her masculine energy all day. And at the same time is also now trying to be on par with you. Like, I find a lot of women that are boss chicks are trying to do this whole 50-50 thing, which isn't the worst thing in the world until it comes to, like, ultimately there can't be two leaders of one ship. So you might say, hey, I think this is a good thing for the household. And the boss chick is going to be using her boss chick energy to try to fight you on it. And that can cause a lot of clashes. So, but that's not all boss chicks. And so that's why I didn't really ultimately add it to the top 10 list, because I've dated plenty of boss chicks who were able to have a decent enough like work-life balance where she could be one way at work and then be more girly and feminine around me. But you can run across boss chicks that don't know how to turn that off, and that could be problematic if there's not conversations had. But I wanted to throw that in there as an honorable mention. All right, so let's get it. Let's get into this top 10 women that you need to avoid. Number 10, naggers and complainers. These are the women that just are very pessimistic about life, and they're the ones that they come home from work and they're constantly complaining. That you hear her talk about her friends and family, she's constantly complaining. She's wanting to do certain things in her life to advance herself, but she has a lot of self-doubt. She's nagging and complaining. On top of, sometimes these women also will be the ones that it's not like they'll be nitpicky about how you are in certain situations or when you're trying to do certain things. And these are things like, for example, say she wants you to wash the dishes, so you wash them, but it's not quite to her liking. She nags about it. Or say she wants you to take out the trash, and you're like, okay, great. On this next commercial break, I'll take out the trash. And then 2 seconds later, she's like, no, go take it out now. Or like she doesn't like the way you're doing certain things around the house, and just other things that just aren't really big deals, but that she'll just kind of nitpick at. Those are the kind of women that are likely to drive you crazy. And like I said, they have a negative outlook on life, so they're complaining about stuff all the time. Ideally, you want a woman that's more optimistic, that's going to believe that things are possible. And I find with complainers, that's not really their go-to. And that could be whether they, dealt with stuff earlier in life where they just don't have a positive view about anything. That's not your problem unless you're dating her, then it becomes your problem. So if you notice early on in the dating phase that she's like a lot of her stories are either leaning in a negative way, or she's always complaining about how her day is going, or she's just constantly, nitpicking at you about certain things that you say that you like to do or have interest in. This is why you don't want to make a decision about a woman right away, by the way. Like after 2 or 3 dates, you really shouldn't be thinking she's the right one, because you really need to have a 3-month period of time to really vet to see like how she is in a day-to-day. And what you'll find is a lot of women, if you stick around long enough, you'll start to see that they're nagging about a lot of stuff and they're complaining about a lot of stuff, either in their life or things that she thinks you should be doing. And you don't want to date those women long-term, because it only gets worse. Like if they're already complaining about stuff in the honeymoon phase, when everything's supposed to be all peachy keen, it's not going to get better long-term, all right? So that's the first kind of woman that you want to avoid if you can when you're dating. The 9th type of woman that you want to avoid dating are women with excessive trauma in their past, especially the ones that have daddy issues, because you're going to see these women and a part of you is going to be drawn to them in part because they're going to be telling you about how nobody's ever treated them right, or how they had this person touch them when they were a kid, or how every guy she's ever dated in her entire life has always just, not treated her well, or how her dad either abandoned her, abused her, misspoke to her, or wasn't there for her in her life growing up. And so when we hear these stories, you might think, oh man, I want to be able to be the one to show her that I'm different from all the other guys out there. And what you'll find is you being the nicest guy in the world, you coming to them and trying to, be on the up and up with them and do nice things for them and really be there for them. You're thinking that you showing her this is going to allow her to finally trust men. But I have found that women with excessive trauma always have the lens of, this guy is eventually going to hurt me like all the other ones have. And if you don't, what will happen is she'll say, this must be too good to be true. And she'll actually get more anxious and more nervous because she'll constantly be waiting for the other shoe to drop. And if it doesn't, then she'll start doing things or accusing you of things that as if the shoe has already dropped, because in her head, this can't go well. Like ultimately, it feels like it's almost like because she can't predict when you're going to do some traumatic thing to her, it's unsafe for her to be around you. So it just makes it worse in the long run. So as much as you are well-meaning and you want to be there for this woman because you don't want to bring trauma to her life and you want to be able to show her that guys can be different, the reality is some women, if they have too much trauma, they're not going to see that no matter how good of a guy you are. Does that suck? Yes. But the good thing is there are enough women out there that, well, I can't say no. There's plenty of women. Most women have gone through some kind of traumatic experience, but like there's a difference between like, oh, this guy harassed me when I was in college and I feel so weird by it, versus like every year of my life since I've been born, I've had some kind of trauma. Those are the women that if you can help it, you really want to stay away from, because it's not going to be good for you. It's going to be a stressful, anxiety-ridden relationship, and it's not going to be fun in the long run. All right, that was number 9. The 8th type of woman that you want to avoid dating at all costs are women who have bad conflict resolution skills. These are the ones that if you get into an argument or tussle, there's no listening to your side of the things. It is your fault. If you try to talk to her about what it is that's going on, she's going to say you're either gaslighting her or that you're just trying to over-explain yourself to her, and really it's your fault. This is the kind of person that if she lets you talk, at the point where you start trying to talk or give your side of a situation, she's going to overtalk you. She's going to stop you. She's going to run excessively at the mouth and talk for like 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and then get mad at you if you try to like get back in and say 2 words to her. And what I found is this: women talk about how they're such good communicators. I find oftentimes there are women that are great at talking, but not great at communicating. They're not great at actually being able to see the other person's side of things. And they're taking things from the standpoint of, I'm always the victim. If you come across women like this, what you're going to find is they have bad conflict resolution skills, and you're going to always be seen as the bad guy. And realistically, in a relationship, there's going to be times, guy, where you do stuff wrong and you got to fess up to it and apologize and say, my bad. I didn't know I was doing this thing. I didn't mean it when I did this thing. My mistake. But if you're with a woman that can't also do that and is more likely to want to fight you than actually try to resolve a situation, then again, that's going to be a stressful situation for you to be in long term. and you want to run from that, because there's no reason as the guy. This is why I tell you also, as a guy, you need to learn to not let things bother you so much, in part because then if you take your ego out of situations and a woman comes to you and says, hey, I have an issue with this thing that you're doing, you won't take it so much as she's nagging on you as, oh, I could be messing up in some way. You know what? She might be right. Let me go ahead and like discuss with her what it is, and we can come to a resolution. And that's why you can't let things bother you so much. But also what will happen is you'll be the even keel one in arguments. So if she brings something to your attention, you're able to sit there and be able to see both sides of the argument and figure out how to talk about it. And you'll also be able to start to see how, freaked out women get when you're trying to tell them that they're wrong about something and that they've made a mistake and they're going all haywire because they can't really fight you on it. So they'll try to use these other tactics to try to still not make it feel like it's their fault and try to talk about other things that have nothing to do with the current argument to try to put the blame on you. Or they'll go into, well, I don't like your tone in this argument. I don't like how you're saying these things to me, even if you're talking to them the same way that I'm talking to you now. And so, like I said, women with bad conflict resolution skills, they are not trying to come to a resolution. They're trying to win a fight. You don't want to stay with women long-term that are just in these fights to try to win them or prove themselves right and make you the bad guy. All right. So if you start feeling that early on in the dating process, get out now while it's still early, because if you get married to them and this stuff still is going on, there's going to be paperwork involved that you got to use to get out of it. And it is not going to be fun, and it'll cost you a lot more money. The seventh type of woman that you should avoid dating at all costs are women with sexy social media pictures. These are women, or just in general, any kind of social media presence whereby they're showing off any types of skin, lingerie, they're shaking it, all these other things, right? Now, somebody out there is going to say, but Harry, what if she's like a model? If she doesn't have an actual modeling contract somewhere where she's going to professional building to get pictures taken to be shown on magazines or billboards, then that's not modeling. That's just showing off. And a woman who is all about you should only be showing those parts of herself to you. If she's out there in social media land trying to show these videos of her twerking or shaking it up at the club or trying to show off her curves or wearing clothes that like have her cleavage popping all out of her neck and stuff, then she's not showing you the respect as her girlfriend that you deserve. And if she wants to be the person that says, hey, I want to show my body off, I want the attention out there, it is what it is. But a woman that's with you should not be seeking out attention from other men out there, let alone the world at large. If she is, I'm telling you now, she's not a good choice for a candidate to date, and she needs to be out. The sixth type of woman that you need to avoid dating are women that either have exes as friends or have a high number of guy friends, all right? As a man, if you are friends with a woman, even if you guys just agreed to a friendship, if she's any kind of attractive, you're probably trying to get with her. So with that said, women oftentimes don't have this understanding that just because a guy is friends with them, that does not mean that he would never think about potentially trying to hook up with her or be in a relationship. And this is especially true of women that still have exes as friends, because those exes are there in part because they're thinking, most of the time, women are the ones doing the breaking up. So if the guy has agreed to be just her friend, he's there thinking, but at any point, if she changes her mind, I'll be back in there. If the guy she's going with now, they break up, I'm going to be able to have a shot. And in fact, even if she's with the guy now, she's known me longer, I'm going to still try to see if I can do things to make sure that she breaks off with this other guy. All right. So you're going to be with this woman trying to battle off exes, or, trying to see to it that she doesn't hang out with another ex with the idea that she could potentially hook up with that person. And women will say all day, well, he's my ex, I would never. Yeah, she would never, but you know that he's definitely trying to, and that it takes is one drunk moment to where she's going to be trying to hook up with him, or she's going to acquiesce to a kiss happening that just happened and we were just drunk one night and yada, yada, yada. Same thing for a woman with a lot of guy friends, because again, even if women typically can kind of feel like, well, we're just friends, but I know he has a crush on me. I've heard plenty of women say, I know this certain guy friend has a crush on me, but we're just keeping it platonic for now. But again, he's been there longer. And women that have a bunch of guys around, whether they're using them as orbiters to in case she needs something fixed at her house or a bug killed or whatever, the point is those guys are still being used for some form of attention. That is no bueno. So if she's got exes in the background, don't date her. And some of you might think, well, I've already started dating her, but we're not boyfriend and girlfriend yet. But how can I have her get rid of the exes? I find it very simple. If you're doing the right thing where you're dating her for 2 or 3 months and you're not bringing up a relationship and you're waiting for her to bring it up, inevitably she'll say to you, hey, so I want to be your girlfriend, or what are we, yada, yada, yada. At this point, if you know that she has exes in the background that she's kept as friends, this is when you can say, well, do you have any exes in the background that are still friends? If she says, well, yeah, I do, you don't need to force a woman to get rid of those friends. You don't have to say, well, if you just have those guy friends or those exes, then we're not going to date. Again, we're all about women need to feel like they're making the decision to get rid of these guys. So if she says to you, well, yeah, I still got, Bob and John that are exes that are still friends of mine, you can just say, okay, great. You know what? Let's just keep it the way it is. And she'll probably respond with like, well, what do you mean? Say, well, you said that you have exes of yours that are just friends. So let's keep it as it is. And she's like, but I want to be in a relationship. I said, well, I don't typically, get into serious situations with women that have exes lurking in the background. But and hey, I'm not going to force you to change that up. We can just keep it at the level that it's at right now. Totally fine. And at that point, she has a decision to make. You haven't told her to outright get rid of these guys, but you are saying if she wants a relationship with you, then this is not acceptable behavior to you. And you have every right to decide what behavior you will or will not accept in your relationships. If the stuff that you don't want involves her having exes there, that's totally in your right. Just like she has the right to keep those guys as friends, but she also knows now what your boundaries are. And I find oftentimes that women actually want to know what your boundaries are, and it's more likely they're going to respect you in the long run if you set up some kind of boundaries. But again, it's not about forcing them to get rid of these guys. It's just letting them know that as long as they're around, you're going to just keep things where they're at. You're not going to call it a relationship. This also gives you the ability to potentially be seeing other women at the same time because it's not a relationship, and that'll leave her with a decision to make. But yeah, don't actually agree to be in a relationship with a woman that you know has exes as friends still. The fifth kind of woman to avoid dating, this one's a little bit controversial, is women with high body counts. And some guys might feel some kind of way about it. I know women will definitely feel some kind of way about this because women are always like, well, what's the difference between, a guy that has a high body count and a woman that has a high body count? And I tell them this, I say, as men, we have to work extra hard to be able to achieve the kind of self-confidence and status, more importantly, that a majority of women desire to be able to get a whole bunch of women. Women just have to be like, hey, I'm available, and men will come rushing in. So that's why of the two of us, it's not that I'm saying advocating for like men need to have higher body counts. I personally think that you should do a better job at dating intentionally to find those right women that you can actually see yourself with long term. But of the two sexes, we can get away with it better because when women see that a guy has a high body count, the first thing you think is, oh, he must have status. Oh, wow, a lot of women like him. He must be doing something right. He must know how to handle women. Women that have a high body count, it's just like, so you're just loose. Like you are the protector of the womb, and you are the person that has like the precious jewel down there, and you decided to just give it away like it's like cheap slots at a vending machine. Like that's why it is. It's not necessarily the most fair thing in the world, but like there are plenty of things that women can get away with that as men in the dating realm, we can't get away with. This is just one of those things. So yeah, women that have high body counts, and I just thought about this the other day because there was a woman that I dated a while ago, and she recently got married to somebody. And my first thought was like, oh, that's freaking great. And then I thought back to like all the times that this chick like sent me pictures and sent me videos of herself where she was like undressed. You know what I mean? And then I started thinking about, well, how many other guys did this woman send these pictures and these videos to? And, she's in her late 20s, so it might not have been a lot, but even if it was like, say, 10 dudes, that's 10 dudes, including her now husband, who have these pictures and videos of her. And now imagine if this woman had like 50 bodies. So that's 50 people that would potentially have these naked pictures and videos of her. How does that look if your girl has had like 50 to 100 bodies? And beyond just like the whole STD thing and the whole pair bonding thing people like to talk about, think about what other things that entails if she has a high body count. You don't know what she sent to other dudes. You don't know the kinds of acts she performed on all these other guys, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. And realistically, I've known some women that have done things in different realms, whether it's like adult industry stuff, yada, 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 that are now married to guys that would have no idea that they were like on camera doing things or sending out things or doing whatever. But the point is, it's not a good look. So and also too, a woman that has a high body count, it's indicative of a woman that does not have self-control or the discipline to be able to choose a wise mate. Like women that are just like, I'm just going to hook up with whatever. Again, it's easier for women to have a higher body count than men. So the fact that you give with a woman where like, you know, she was giving up to a new guy every week until she met you, and she did it for like 3 or 4 years, that's like 100-something plus bodies, and she was just like, I'm just going to give it away for free. And then she comes to you and is like, oh, well, okay, what is. Like, that shows no discipline. And that also doesn't indicate that she's going to be able to stop doing that at the point where she gets into a relationship with you. And even if she commits to you or marries you, who's to say that now that she's done that for years on end, that that's going to be an easy thing to get rid of, you know? And so it's just overall, it's not a good look, and it reflects poorly on her, and it can reflect poorly on you if down the line, say she was sending like pictures to like 50 guys that she hooked up before, and then you marry her, and then you want to, you know, you guys are walking out one day and you guys happen to run across a guy that she used to date, and you see him like that smirk across his face that indicates like, oh yeah, I've seen her naked. In fact, I can still see her naked right now. Like, it's just not a good look. So guys, if you can help it, try to find women that have lower body counts. They typically tend to be a bit more disciplined, and they just are a better pick all around. Again, it's a controversial thing to say. You may not agree, but you know, that's just my 2 cents on that. Your experience may vary. The fourth type of woman I'm getting to the controversial stuff, guys. So here we go. The fourth type of woman to avoid dating are overweight, obese women. Now, I know in this day and age of the body positivity movement, we're not allowed to say that. I'm not even coming at it from the angle, though, of their appearance, because I've dated women that were a little bit chubby to slightly obese or whatever, like, and that was my past when I did that. And so I'm not saying that they weren't beautiful or attractive. But what I found is this, and this is really a true thing, is that a woman that is obese, more often than not, is going to come with health problems. Like, real talk. I know people have said before, you're just making that up. That's not a thing. You're just trying to say it because you're really biased and you hate their looks and whatever. No, I'm talking about like seriously obese women typically tend to have major health problems. I'm talking like, obviously diabetes, but also, you know, back pain, leg pain. Typically I've seen it where like women that have more weight on them, you know, for example, I like to do like road trips, you know, I did a whole cross-country trip like 2 or 3 years ago. I drove around the entire country, 11,000 miles. I was doing anywhere between like 8 to 10 hours a day in a car. Women that typically are obese can't sit in the car for more than like 2 hours before their leg starts hurting, before they start getting cramps, before they're getting tired. And so her being overweight is going to greatly affect your guys' lifestyles together, because there's going to be times where she's in pain and she has to go get massages and she has to like get her leg cranked out. She can't really move right now because she's really hurting. And then you got to think about, if you guys get married, her having to go to get checked for health reasons and stuff in the hospital and see doctors and whatnot, that those bills add up. Those now become your bills because she decided not to get in shape. You get to get affected in your wallet. You get to get affected in your lifestyle, and she could be the most attractive looking obese woman you've ever seen. Internally, those things are going to still come to fruition. There's still going to be a lot of pains, a lot of hurts. And then also you got to factor in the fact that a lot of women, they get obese in part because they've had traumatic lifestyle, which I talked about earlier. And so because of that, like, that's also something to consider, is that being obese signals that she's probably been through some traumatic stuff that she, more importantly, hasn't healed from. Because even if like she went through trauma, but then she was able to heal, because she'd be able to eat better. But a lot of times they're eating their feelings. They're trying to mask the pain they were going through. And as a result of that, they get bigger and bigger. And even if you're dating her and giving her the best lifestyle ever, the reality is she could still be feeling that other pain. And if you're mixed with that, with the fact that oftentimes women that haven't had good relationships, when they get into one, it starts to freak them out. So now you treating her well in the relationship is actually causing her to want to eat more because she's more anxious. She's only going to get bigger. At the point where you meet a woman, when you first start dating her, chances are that she's going to get bigger as you date her. Like the size that she's at today is going to probably be the lowest weight she's going to be. And so as you date her, she's going to get more and more heavy. So it's only going to get worse in the long run. So that's why I say, like, as you could be dating the nicest, most best looking obese woman ever. It ain't about looks. It's about the health factor, and it's about the fact that your lifestyle is going to be greatly affected by hers. And also, when people are together long enough, they start influencing each other. You're going to be a healthy guy now, but if she's like, every day, like, hey, let's just stay home tonight and just order pizza and eat Doritos and watch TV, I guarantee you in 2 to 3 months, you will be bigger. Trust me, I've dated bigger women where in the course of us dating in the span of like 6 to 8 months, I noticed I was gaining weight. And I'm like, oh crap, where'd this happen from? And it's because, again, I'm not recognizing there's an influence there. And so that's why I say, as nice and as kind and caring as an overweight woman may be, her lifestyle is not going to be beneficial to the relationship in the long run, okay? So I say try to avoid them if you can. And by the way, don't be one of those guys that's going to think, well, she's overweight now, but if we get into a relationship, I'm going to work out with her and we're going to do some stuff. She's going to lose that weight. If she's doing it solely for you, it's not going to stick because she needs to be losing that weight for her. If she's doing it for you, let's say you guys get in a fight one day and now she's crying and she wants to go eat her feelings again. She's going to gain 5 pounds. Now, all that work went away because she's now mad at you, and to get back at you, she's going to gain some of the weight back. This is just the stuff that happens, guys. I'm serious. It's real talk, okay? So consider that before trying to go for these overweight women, which you shouldn't be going for. Somebody left in the chat, those medical bills will be crazy with the overweight woman. Yeah, man, like the stuff I've seen. I remember there was a woman I was dating a long time ago. She got to like, I think 260 or something like that. And she was like a small thing, like 5'4", something like that. And she was just driving around one day and randomly just passed out and crashed her car. And I'm getting this call like a few hours later, like, what the freak happened? It's like and that's when she also told me she was also pre-diabetic. I'm just like, holy crap. And this is a woman that I thought was extremely beautiful and was really loving and caring, but just like she had those issues. And this also goes back to she had traumas in her past with her and her mom's relationship. So all this stuff connects in terms of like being able to tell who's going to be a good candidate for dating and not, Anyway, the third type of woman that you need to avoid dating at all costs are women who are separated from their husbands or who have recently divorced. If they're recently divorced, if they're recently separated, they have not had enough time to actually really sit down with themselves and see if this is the choice that they actually want to make. And also, they haven't had time to really kind of like reflect on where the relationship went wrong, where the guy that they're with was doing bad things and where they did wrong. But more importantly, what parts of the relationship could they have done better? Because I find oftentimes women are very, very bad at self-reflection. Like it's assumed because we're seen as the leaders of the relationship, it is assumed that if the relationship goes bad, it's automatically our fault. So a lot of women are bad at being able to reflect and say, well, I did this wrong. I could have showed up here better. Maybe I shouldn't have done this thing. More often than not, you're going to hear like, oh, that guy was just a jerk and he didn't listen to me and he didn't pay attention and blah, 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 all that other stuff, okay? But the point is, there's not enough time there for her to have actually assessed and reconnected with herself and gotten to a place where she has a healthier look on dating, And so I say if you're going to date like a divorced woman or a separated woman, have it at least have it her say, it's been a year since I've been in that situation. That way she's had ideally time to go to a therapist, psychologist, go through counseling, have time to herself to really connect with what she really feels she did wrong in the relationship so she can get to a better place to be good for that next person that comes along. But if they're recently separated, you are going to be dealing with somebody who's going to be running hot and cold. It'll go from, I'm showing him a lot of attention to, oh, but my marriage, and oh, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. And then on top of, especially if she's just separated and she's legitimately going through a divorce, she's going to be going to court. She's going to be dealing with paperwork. She's going to be still having to meet up with her ex for a variety of things, whether it's, splitting property if they have property, or dealing with the kids if they have kids, or, trying to iron out the details of whatever, alimony payments are going to be. So the ex is going to still be in her life for at least that first year while she's trying to get divorced and separated. And guess what, guy? That means that there's going to be times where she's going to be reflecting back on that marriage. There's going to be hard days she has where she's just crying her eyes out, or she suddenly, the ex said something to her in a text about their court case, and now she's all bothered, and you're trying to take her out that night on a date, and she's now crying her eyes out because of what the ex said, and now you can't take her out because she's crying, and it's ruined your entire night. And I know there are guys that can deal with that. Like, hey, you can be like, I'm going to be there for her. And even if she's going through with something else with this guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you guys, you don't need to make your life harder by dating these types of women, because you're dating a woman that is separated or divorced, but there are plenty of actually single, have no kids, just looking for a good guy but haven't found it yet, women out there, enough of them to not have to go for this type of woman or some of the other ones that I've talked about up to this point. All right. So she's recently separated or divorced. If you find her, she's just the most hottest thing you've ever seen, and you think based on 1 or 2 dates you have a good rapport, you'd be wiser to say, hey, I think we have a great rapport, but you know what? You told me the thing about being separated or divorced, and I just really think that, I would want to date you, but I think that until that is situated or handled, that you could go around, either we just be friends for now, or you could say, you know what, hit me up in a year. Once that's all, ironed out, if you're still feeling me and I'm still feeling you, and we're still both, available, then we can take a crack at it. But there's just too much punishment that comes from dating women that are just separated or recently divorced, where I got to say, it's not worth it. All right. The number two of type of woman to avoid dating, if you can help it, single moms. I've done so many videos at this point about why single moms are not great women to date. And it's not even to say that the woman themselves can't be great. Hey, a single woman with a single mom that has kids could, in theory, be a great person themselves. I don't recommend them because of these situations that arise from a woman having kids. A woman that has a kid, for one, means that, surprise, surprise, more often than not, there's a guy in the background. And I know, people might say, but what about deadbeat dads and yada, yada, yada? Statistically, it shows that the majority of men actually want to be in their kid's life. So that means you're going to be fighting another man now for his ability to spend time with his own son while you're there. And that man, sad to say, but it's true, he has every right to be curious about and be cautious about the type of men, i.e. you, that are trying to suddenly play stepdad to this kid. Now you're saying you're not stepdad yet, but the reality is if you're dating this woman and it proves to be successful, you're going to get married to her, you will now be a stepdad. So from jump, you're already going to be seen in that light. Even if a woman's trying to say, you don't have to be his father, he's got a father, I don't need your money. The reality is if you guys are living in the same home together at some point and the kid's there, yeah, you are now the protector of that kid. And I've already gone through so many scenarios in these other various videos that I've made from other guys commenting about the numerous amount of horrible situations that have arisen from dating single moms, whether it's like they have a daughter that tried to accuse them of some harassment stuff, or whether it's like the mom not allowing them to discipline the kid, or just, when things go haywire, all of a sudden it's like they've created a bond with this kid, but now the mom doesn't want them to be around the kid anymore because they're breaking up. And so you can't see the kid anymore. Like there's literally hundreds of scenarios I've read about at this point, just in my comments alone, from guys that dated single moms that were like, this is not worth it. Like given the choice between this person and this person here that doesn't have kids, always go with the person that has no kids, because the one that's a single mom, it is a hard road, man. And it's, you want to build your own legacy. So realistically, you can find a woman that has no kids. And by the way, I come from a family where like my granddad was actually my step granddad. I didn't even correlate that until like years, like almost my 20s, like, wait, he's not actually my granddad. So yeah, my granddad was a stepdad to my dad and his 2 sisters. Now, my dad's dad was very abusive. So he was happy to have a role model around that wasn't abusive, that would be able to like spend guy time with him and show him the ropes. But his sisters, I think up until like the last year of his life, and he lived to be like 90 something, they were kind of like, well, he's the stepdad, we don't have to listen to him. And oh my gosh. And this came out, this is the guy that came in, took care of my grandma, bought her a house to be able to live in and retire to when he died, she still had a house to live in. They were able to survive off of his salary, even though she was a teacher, but he had like an army job and whatnot. So he had benefits, he had insurance, all this other stuff. He's bringing all this stuff to the table. And yet my 2 aunts were still like, but that's stepdad. You don't win points for dating single moms, guys. Real talk. So just a note of caution. And then finally, number 1, people, the number 1 type of, I know you're thinking that single mom should have been number 1, but no, the number 1 type of woman to avoid dating, if you can help it, feminist. You do not want to date feminists. Now you might be thinking, but Harry, why would you not want to date a feminist? Doesn't being a feminist just mean that you believe women should have equal rights and equal pay and be able to have the same opportunities as men do? Well, that is part of it. But the thing is this, it's not about being against the things feminists stand for, because I think some of the stuff they actually stand for is very admirable. I think that women should have a right to, achieve certain things and not be blocked for their dreams. But it's more about the attitude and the viewpoint that feminists often have, because the overarching viewpoint that the majority, I'm going to say, not generalizing, I'm saying the majority of feminists have, is that the patriarchy is evil and men are holding us back. And so when you date a woman that has that kind of viewpoint, it makes it very hard to do certain things in a relationship. Perfect. I'll give a small example, right? Because I was thinking about this today, right? Let's say you're on a road trip with a woman, right? And you start playing a rap CD. Okay. Now, most rappers, they're throwing around, the B word, or these 304s, this and this, this and that. And with most other women that you'll date, right? They'll hear like, yeah, B's ain't S, blah, 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 blah. And they're either like dancing along to it, or they're like, well, they don't agree with the wording of it, but the beat's kind of cool. So it is what it is. And that'll be it. There won't be a conversation. There's no big deal. With a feminist in the car, somebody might, like DMX might be like, all these B's and H's and blah, 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 blah. And now you got to have a 25-minute conversation with this woman in your car about the music you decided to play and what that actually means about your viewpoint of women, and well, how do you actually view women, and do you find this kind of thing respectful? And well, if you had a daughter, would you allow her to hear this kind of music? And how can you listen to a guy that's talking about women in this way, and blah, 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 blah? Do you want to continue to have those kind of conversations in your relationship? On top of, I find too with feminists is that because they see that everything is the man's fault, right? So let's say there's a court case that comes up where a guy's getting accused of, we'll say, bad touching, right? He's just getting accused. There's no evidence yet that he did. Some women come out and just said, yeah, this guy touched me and we're going to court for it, right? So if you're dating a feminist, you just having the thought of, I want to see what all the evidence is before I make my decision about who I believe, will cause a fight. Because her thought's going to automatically be, well, the woman wouldn't lie about that. And so many other women get touched like that. And there's all these bad guys that are out there to try to harm women. And you don't think this guy would have been one to harm women. You just simply saying, but I want to see the evidence first, now becomes a fight. And it's going to be little things here and there. There's going to be a power struggle. You're going to be, as the guy, trying to lead the relationship because it's the traditional guy thing to do. And she's going to try to fight you about, what does it mean to be traditional? Why is it that you as the guy have to be the leader? Why can't I be the one on occasion wear the pants, and yada, yada, yada? And it's just going to be a lot of arguing, a lot of fighting, and a lot of energy that you're going to put towards trying to love somebody who you genuinely care about, and are trying to wonder at the same time why she's making all these things that aren't big deals like the biggest deals in the world. And so, yeah, if you can avoid it at all costs, try to avoid a feminist. Like, I'm talking about feminists that are legit, like out there marching, out there trying to fight for stuff, because that is a level of energy against men subconsciously that she has that she's not even aware of, is causing her to be a detriment to her relationship. All right. So yeah, going down the top 10 type of women to avoid altogether. You want to avoid naggers and complainers. Number 9, you want to avoid women with excessive trauma in their past or daddy issues. Number 8, you want to avoid women with bad conflict resolution skills. Number 7, you want to avoid women that are trying to get social media attention and show all these sexy pictures to a bunch of people. Number 6, you want to avoid women with exes as friends, or women that have too many guys as friends. Number 5, you want to avoid women with high body counts. Number 4, you want to avoid overweight women. Number 3, you want to avoid women who are separated from their husbands or recently divorced. Number 2, you want to avoid single moms. And number 1, of course, you want to avoid feminists. Guys, dating can be very easy if you learn to try to target the right kinds of women that are upbeat, positive, happy, have come from a good background, and ultimately recognize that you as a guy are going to be a benefit to her life and not somebody she needs to fight all the time. All right. So, and those kind of women, I know it's hard in 2022, almost 23. You might be thinking those women don't exist. I'm telling you, they are out there. You may need to expand your circle. And I know as an introvert, it can be hard to want to think like, I got to go out to other places and try to meet more people. But I'm telling you guys, they are out there. There are great women that are out there and are single and ready to date. It's worth it. But you got to know like where they're at. And then when you find them, you got to know kind of like what to do in order to attract them, keep their attraction, and get them to where they want to actually make you the boyfriend. If you need help with that, right down here, the Introvert Dating Success Membership Academy is open. It's like the Netflix of dating. It's like hours full of great advice on how you can go from being a shy anxious type dater to one that's more confident and that knows how to actually date women and keep them around. All right. You get a free 2-day trial for checking it out. So go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and check that out as well. Guys, if you all found this to be helpful, do me a favor, support the show by going to my Cash App at Harry Wilmington and leaving a small monetary thank you. I'm also on TikTok now at Harry Wilmington. So follow me there. I'm on Instagram at Introvert Dating Success. And yeah, that's all I got, guys. If you want to sign up for one-on-one coaching also, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and click on the coaching tab. And I'll be happy to help you set up a one-on-one phone consultation where we can talk about any kind of dating situation you're going through because I like to help. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Harry Wilmington. I got to go to this play now. So I'll talk to y'all later. I'm out. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Introvert Dating Success Podcast. Visit us at introvertdatingsuccess.com for more great tips on attracting women using your natural introvert charm.